We're going to go ahead and get started. I know we still have some people trickling in, but want to take advantage of the hour we have with you all today. First and foremost, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have Nancy and her team here to discuss getting the job you want. We're going to go over resume reviews and job search tips. Before we get started, just want to thank our sponsors, Nebo, Friendly Human, Gage, Goodway Group, Swarm, Hey Orca, the AJC, Acquia, Higher Profile, Hot House, Vert, and Mercer University. Also, we have several events that are going to be coming up that are also virtual events through the AMA Atlanta. On November 19th, we have the AMA Atlanta Collegiate Happy Hour, if you're interested in registering for that. We also have Flexibility, Fluidity, and Innovation in Sports Marketing. This is going to be a great event with top marketers from the Hawks, the Falcons, and the Braves, and that is December 3rd. And then also another great one we have coming up, Can You Hear Me? Bringing together speakers that can look at different perspectives around how brands are leveraging voice and audio as part of a holistic marketing strategy. And that one is December 9th. With that, I would like to turn it over and introduce to you Nancy and her team from Higher Profile. They are going to take you through the presentation today. We're going to be using the Q&A functionality if you have questions during the presentation, and then we'll be doing that after the resume review. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Nancy and her team.
Hey everybody, I am about to share and get this show on the road. So let me just get my technology here. I'm going to hide everybody's view. I just wanted to say that Higher Profile is an Atlanta company, and we are focused on placing people in marketing, creative, and graphic design jobs, both freelance, contract, permanent, as well as part-time and project. So just wanted you to know who we are. We're a certified women-owned business, and we've been in business for 17 years. And two of my teammates are here with me today, and you'll be hearing from them at the end of the presentation when we do the official resume speed reviews. Just a quick overview of some of the titles that we place, everything from traffic managers to brand planners to creative directors. So it's just a quick overview of the kind of people we deal with on a daily basis. Today, we're going to kind of start from the big picture, and some of you may be in a layoff situation. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about that reality that some of us are facing right now, talk a little bit about networking, applying for jobs, filling the gaps in your resume as you may be, impacted right now. We'll talk about some key best practices for resumes. Also, we're going to cover some key best practices for LinkedIn, interview skills, and then we'll get to kind of the funnest part, and that is the actual 2 resumes that we chose from those that were submitted. And those are real people that are on this call. And we will walk you through what we would do if we saw this resume and had the opportunity to edit it. So without further ado, we'll go right forward into what to do in a layoff. And this is a reality for some of you, and it may be a fear for others. Hopefully most of us have been able to hold on, but if not, some of the things that I suggest people do is really sit down with your family and your close friends and be really honest and transparent about what you're going through. Obviously, you want to do things like cutting your unnecessary expenses and get a file started for your unemployment benefits. It does take a number of weeks to receive those benefits, so you want to get that filed like day one. But also feel that you grant yourself some time to recuperate from this. This is a big experience. It's a big change in your life, and to jump right into another job might not be the best thing. This is a really good time to actually reevaluate your entire situation. You may decide that you want to do something completely different. You may want to work part-time. You may want to start your own business or a consulting service. So this is the time to do some of that self-reflection. So the next steps for you on once you have been laid off is to start a job search tracking document. This is something a lot of people do. If you're a project manager by trade, it's probably a no-brainer, but not every creative person may want to create a bunch of Excel spreadsheets. But I highly recommend doing it because as you go deeper into this process, you will be meeting a lot of new people, making connections, and you need to chart who you've talked to, about what, when, and when is the next time to follow up. So that is the job search document. Actually, here's a little bit more on it. In addition to the tracking document itself, we suggest that you set yourself some weekly goals and daily action plans to accomplish your goals for the week. So if you may have 5 emails that you want to send out to current contacts, do research on 10 companies and apply to 5 jobs. But then set yourself some daily goals. Well, if I'm going to research 10 companies, that means I need to block out certain number of hours per day. And honestly, if you're unemployed and you're wanting a job, then your new job for 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week is to do stuff like this. So the tracking document doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to show, all of the materials you submitted, what you applied for, all of the contacts, any upcoming interviews that you've scheduled. And especially when you register for a lot of these career and job sites, which, Higher Profile could be one of them, making sure that you keep track of when you registered and those links so you can go back and follow up. Okay, so next up, now that you've kind of had some time to breathe, you've set up your goals for your job search, you've got your tracking document, it's really time to get out there and start making new connections. And we always, 70% of the of openings are not advertised. So what that says is that a lot of the new jobs that people will find are based on their personal connections. And we feel like in the time of COVID, we don't have as many platforms to meet new people. We've been spending a lot of our time, we're all guilty of it, of just maintaining the contacts that we already have. So you're going to have a little bit more of a challenge in making new connections. So you kind of have to be a little more bold and just reach out to people and make those phone calls and set up, Zoom coffees, or if you're comfortable, small social distance in-person meetings. But you can ask them and talk to them, not just about what job they may have for you, but you may be wanting to talk to people about job searching in general, just advice for how to approach a search. Ask them to look at your resume and just critique it for you with no real ask for a job. I feel like a lot of people they're almost so direct. I think sometimes you can build a relationship and not really ask them, or maybe offer them something. Say, hey, and this happens to me, people write to me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I know you're a recruiter. If I can help introduce you to anyone in my network, I'd be happy to do so. And so they come to me with an offer instead of a request, and it's really refreshing. So again, stay in touch via email and, let people know that you're out there and looking, and don't be ashamed of that. Utilizing your connections is basically where everybody has to start. You find new and timely ways to connect with people. Again, you can offer them an article that you spotted about their industry, their profession, that can add value when you reach out and talk to people. It doesn't, again, have to be directly on the topic of you finding a job. One of the ways that I recommend that you utilize LinkedIn is to give LinkedIn recommendations. It seems like a small thing. We all know that LinkedIn has the recommendations section. You would be surprised of how many people have maybe received 15 recommendations and they've given 2. That is a very lopsided equation. The best way to get a recommendation, if that's your ultimate goal, is to give one, because the system asks that person if they'd like to return the favor. So go this weekend, maybe find think of 5 people, that a vendor that came through for you at the last minute, a colleague that always was above and beyond, and go out and write really professional recommendations to those people, and your recommendations will also increase. Of course, informational interviews are a really key way. If you can set up a Zoom, say, look, I just like 15 minutes of your time to hear a little bit more about what you do, how you got started in your career, what made you choose the company that you work for? Tell me about you. And in that, you will learn a lot about them and the kind of company that they work for. And we're going to talk a little bit more about researching companies versus researching and finding a job. Oops. But that's right now. All right. So when you are networking, you're probably thinking, I just want a job. But what we suggest is that you take a step back and stop looking for jobs, but look for companies that match your values, and that these companies are exciting and doing the kind of work and making the kind of products that you could really get behind, and that has also the culture that matches with your personality or your work style or ethics. So I think that the research part is a little bit more important than ever before, especially if you have the time because you're laid off. This is the time to really start meeting people who work for that company. They may not even be in your exact area, but they can share with you a little bit about their culture and what makes that company a great place to work. You will be, as you apply to jobs online, you always say, read that job posting 3 times, because you will miss things. And there are certain subtleties that will be found in the keywords and in the way that they write their job descriptions that'll tell you what's really important to them. And you want to make sure that your application, your cover letter, and your resume all speak to their pain points. So a lot of us are in a situation where you're really trying to hold on to your current job. You haven't had a layoff, but things might be a little bit shakier than they normally are. And one of the key things is to really speak to your manager and to make sure that they understand your dedication and your value. Just having that simple communication could make all the difference. A lot of times, jobs will be eliminated and you see people being cut all around you, but that doesn't mean that that job is truly eliminated. They may be wanting a different skill set in that same role. So don't assume that that somebody gets laid off, their job is eliminated. That may be a very perfect opportunity for you to apply for that and to offer a new fresh take on that same position. So now it's time for a quick poll. So everybody get your mouse out and we're going to answer some questions and have a little fun with statistics. All right, our first question is, how are you feeling about work right now? The question answers are, I'm happy and liking my role. I'm getting antsy and I'm thinking of looking around. I'm in an active search, I gotta go. Or I'm out of work and I'm finding something, and finding something is my full-time job. Oops. All right. I cannot see how many have participated, so I'll just assume we've all answered and you can post the results. Okay, so we have 46% are out of work and finding something is my full-time job. That's almost half the people here today, which is not surprising since this is about job seeking. We've got 15% that I'm happy, about 15% that I'm starting to get a little antsy, and then the remainder of 24% you're employed but actively searching. Great, thank you for that. All right, so in this time of COVID, and there's still things that you can do to fill the gaps in a resume. If you end up being a year out or 6 months out, there are lots of things that you can do that show an employer that you've used your time wisely. These, looking for gaps not only in your skills that you can improve, you can use this time with added value to your community through volunteerism and, mentoring young people. If you're an older executive that's looking, there's a lot of things that you can do that will actually make you shine when you are applying for jobs, even though you've been out of work for a number of months. I have created a list, and I can send this to our organizers to get out, of different places that offer different classes. But the main thing is to look at, there's local places here in Atlanta, and actually they're all over the country. The General Assembly will be offering a lot of virtual classes. The good thing is most of these places are now offering virtual, what used to be more of an in classroom situation. Colleges and university, even the US Department of Labor, their job centers may have classes that you can take. And also there are, LinkedIn has LinkedIn Learning, which used to be lynda.com. Some of you may be familiar with that under its old name, but there are many, many classes and videos there that are wonderful on digital marketing and all kinds of things. So use this time to not only identify where your skills are lacking, and you may do that through applying to jobs, and you're going to see, okay, everybody's asking for, Salesforce, and I've never used Salesforce. Well, you can get on and you can find classes on at least understanding, customer databases and things like that. There is also, once your layoff is said, you may want to find additional revenue streams. Now, obviously, registering with a company like Higher Profile is one option. We are an agency. We help place people in jobs. But using, obviously using LinkedIn, there are many features in LinkedIn that can allow the people searching to see that you're available, to see that you're looking for work. Just letting people know, we kind of talked about that. But one thing you might want to consider is to become a consultant. And that could be a very good way to earn hourly or project fees during this time and help, clients in your area of expertise. And then of course, just making sure your LinkedIn profile says that. So that leads us to just to talk briefly about the gig economy. And there is obviously an entire career to be made in this type of work. It takes maybe a certain type of personality or stamina to be able to maintain, a bank of clients, lots and lots of different projects, different deadlines. It may be that this is living in an uncertain world is not for you, then I wouldn't necessarily go this way. But if you think this could work for you, then being a freelancer or being a consultant is a wonderful way. It provides freedom and flexibility. But there is certain responsibilities that if you've worked for a big company your whole life, you may not be used to having to invoice your own work, and then also calling and collecting on those payments and doing your taxes and calculating your business expenses. So there are things in a freelancer's world that you need to be very well aware of before you dive in. And of course, then there's professional part-time as well. There's a little more rare, but those opportunities exist, especially when clients are a little nervous to hire right now. They might be very happy to have a part-time worker. All right, so now we're going to talk about some of the best practices that we advise when building a resume. Some of you may not have built a resume in 18 years, and what they looked like 18 years ago is very different than how they look now. The same basic purpose, and I will always remind you that the purpose of a resume is not to get a job, is to get an interview. So just kind of keep that in mind. It doesn't have to say everything you've ever done and everything about you, because you're going to save some of that for the interview. But here's what we consider some of the most important characteristics. Your name and contact information does not need to include your street address. We still see them come with full street addresses, but that is no longer. And please include a hyperlink to your LinkedIn profile URL in your contact information. It is just as important as email or phone these days. Then you'll want to go into a summary of your qualifications. I like a headline as well. I didn't put it on here, but I like to know who I'm talking to, how to get a hold of them, and what they do for a living within that first, 1/4 of the resume. Then you get into a summary. This is probably the one place on your resume where you can talk about your personality, your work ethic, the kind of employee that you will be. And so this is a time to maybe talk a little bit more about what I call soft skills. These are some of the inherent traits that you have that make you a unique hire for me. Then we go into your professional experience. You really don't have to list professional experience beyond 10 years. Some people go to 15, but once it goes beyond that, you really could either drop it, or you could maybe have a small section called earlier employment, where it really comes down to just title, company name, and the dates, and you really don't have to have any bullets or explanation. Then at the bottom, we put education. If your graduation date is over 15 years ago, you can drop that graduation date. Make sure that your college has the city and the state, and some people are not as familiar with all the different colleges. But make sure that that degree stands out. If you have an MBA, don't bury that. Put that in big, bold letters. That is, something you want to highlight. And then we want to have a computer and technical skills section. Obviously, if you don't have any computer or technical skills, don't add this section. However, if you've used, different social media software, you've used databases, obviously the Microsoft products, any of the Creative Suite, Adobe products, a lot of people have ignored this section. So we really want you to have that, because those are great keywords for searching. And then also you can add transferable and soft skills, and that's where it could be written and verbal communication, problem solving, presenting to clients, budget management, things like that. So you can have all of those in there under skills. So tailoring your resume to the job description is something that I will admit is a pain in the neck. It is a lot of versions. It's a lot of work. However, it is very critical. So you've got to read your job description, and you've got to identify what, like we talked about earlier, the pain points for that particular job, and think in the shoes of that hiring manager. Why is this job open? Because they are looking for a specific type of person to handle certain things. So try to be that person in your resume. No lying, no fudging, but you can highlight different aspects of your background and bring out certain stories in a cover letter that you feel will speak to this job description. Let's make sure that any past job is in the past tense, and that your current job is for the most part in the present tense. However, if you did something, that's hard to explain. If you've done something in your current job that you're no longer doing, it was an accomplishment, that can be in the past tense if it's not a recurring activity. But go through and check that. We do find a lot of people kind of move in and out of tenses. We advise 1 page if you can do it, 2 at the most, but you start getting into 3 and 4 pages, and we will be pushing those back to you to shorten and revise. And then, of course, send your resume to other people. Fresh set of eyes. 1 typo can really send you to the bottom of the pile, and you don't want to give a recruiter or hiring manager any reason to rule you out, because a lot of their day is spent figuring out how to rule people out, because that makes your pile a lot shorter. Okay, it's time for another poll. Are you awake and energized? Okay, so how many interviews have you been on in the last 6 months? None. This is rough. Less than 3, between 3 and 10, and I'm getting lots of interviews and still at it. All right, looks like we have our results. None, 42%. Okay, well, we'll keep talking about that. Less than 3, we've got the next group, and then 3 to 10, and then we have 5% saying they're getting lots of interviews and still at it. So that's good. I don't want people to have to go on lots of interviews and still not have a job. So that's good. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. I think everybody hopefully is in agreement that LinkedIn is pretty much your #1 tool to being seen and to making connections in the business world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about writing that summary that is really the first thing people will normally see. Some of it is hidden. I think they used to have it be a bigger field. Now it is just the first few sentences, and then I think it says more. So you want to make sure your first sentences are really impactful so people want to click more. You want to focus on, like we talked about in that resume summary, it's very similar. You want to focus on demonstrating the kind of employee that you will be and the kind of work that you will do. Not just the skills that you bring, but the kind of employee. But you got to get your hard skills up there. And since people may not read a paragraph that's, 6 inches deep, you want to make sure that your first few sentences definitely talk about what you bring to the table. You want to include numbers and data. So if you have some key accomplishments, some percentages and dollar signs that you can add to that really is impactful. Keywords. And one of the things that I really like is when I see some true personality coming out in a paragraph. Especially for professional recruiters, we see so many resumes and so many opening paragraphs. When you see one that is just a little bit different or might use a little bit of humor, those really stand out and they're refreshing. And so if that is true to your personality, I would say don't feel like it has to be 100% all business. One of the ones in a class that I actually took, they showed an example of someone who wrote their opening paragraph all to the rules, but at the end, they had a little call to action and say, I think they were talking about, I'm a coffee aficionado, and if you'd like to meet me for a coffee, I know all the best, places. And so it was just showing a little bit of personality, but it also had that call to action. And kind of, if you like what you see here, please contact me because I'd love to set up a time to talk. So look back at your summary and know that it is an important aspect of your LinkedIn profile. So we go into the interview, and I've got a lot of slides here, and so we are recording this just to remind you, so you don't have to take notes and everything. But this situation that we're in, why were you laid off? Why are you looking for a job? Be prepared with those answers because they're almost inevitable that you're going to be asked that. Why now? Why are you making a change? So really think about what you want to say and stay really positive. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, no matter how tempting it may be, badmouth your current or former employer. Atlanta especially, is the biggest small town. It not only is it just not good form, you may in fact be talking to someone who knows people there, and you just always want to make them make that transition out of that company a very positive one. Then again, you'll be wanting to know, be prepared what you're going to talk about, what you did with this time. Are you doing volunteer work? Are you working on yourself? Are you reading amazing business books? Are you doing some consulting, helping, mentor a young person? Go ahead and be prepared with those answers as well. So, all right. So now we all know that the video interview is probably here to stay forever and ever. It was a little more rare before. Now it is not only your first interview, it may be that you get a job without ever having gone to an office. So one of the key things is your surroundings, and make sure that you have really cleaned up your desk. You've looked on the floor and up to the ceiling because the camera sees a lot more than you may realize. And if you have to move and find a neutral backdrop, you can do that as well. The other thing is that they can't see everything that you can see. So you can still have cheat sheets and post-it notes, a copy of the job description, a copy of your resume. You can pre-write out your questions. You can have all the scoop on that interviewer. You can have names that you want to drop because you realize you know some people in common. You can have all that in front of you and they won't even know. Obviously, that is completely true for a phone interview. But there are lots of things you can do to keep yourself on task and prepared. Definitely test run your technology. It's been many months now, so if somebody is still fumbling with, they forget the mute button and the iPhone dies or the tablet is not charged, these are things that maybe 8 to 10 months ago would have been understandable. They're really not anymore. You've got to be on your game when it comes to your technology. Look at the camera light. You can see the difference. I'm looking at my screen right now because I have to read. But if I look up at the light, I'm a little bit more addressing the eye, making eye contact with my interviewer. So really try to look up at your camera light. You want to dress professionally, of course. And I will have, I hate to have to say it, but I mean from the waist down as well. You never know if someone will ask you to retrieve something or you have to stand up for some reason and then you've got, sweatpants on. So go ahead, do the whole thing, even though you may never be seen except for the waist up. On a phone interview, you have some even more options, and that is to stand up while you're speaking. Your voice and the tone of your voice and the power that comes from your voice will change if you are standing. So we really recommend that you stand because your energy level will be higher and you will feel more confident. And then one of the things that work for both phone and for video is situation action results. And these are little mini case studies of things that you can share with your employer. You may have the opportunity through questioning to relay these, but it may come to the end of the interview and you haven't had an opportunity. Then you need to say, I'd love to tell you about a particular project that I think would make sense or would relate to your company, and then you can tell what you did in that situation and how those results impacted your employer or your brand or your products. So following up is really key, and I think it's one of the areas that people are the weakest. You want to follow up directly to the hiring manager that you spoke with or that you've applied with, a very clear subject line, and also a thank you. You want to do a thank you email the day of the interview or the very next day. Do not skip that process. And if you interviewed with 5 people, they should all get their own. Then you want to reiterate why you're a great fit for the job. And then I think one of the things that I like is maybe there's a second follow-up. Maybe you don't hear on the first one. So then you come in with another one, but maybe from a slightly different angle. You offer them some value. Again, an article, something that you saw in the news, something that you saw about their company. Follow their company on all of the social media. So when they do have a news announcement, they got a new CEO, they just launched a new product, you're on it and you're saying, wow, saw that. That's amazing. You must be really excited. I would love to be a part of that. And of course, name dropping, always kind of handy. It's like, hey, I talked to our common friend, blah, 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 or I didn't realize, I just looked on LinkedIn. I see that, went to the same college. I mean, you can create areas of connection and keep those follow-ups courteous and timely. Okay, final poll. All right, so the biggest obstacle in finding a new job is my skills are not up to date. I'm so busy at work, my search is slow. I just get nervous on interviews. I'm not a great networker and my skill set is very narrow and there's just not many jobs for me. All right, looks like our results are being tabulated. All right, the winner is, I'm so busy at work, my search is slow. And I understand that. That's probably the one I guessed would be the top choice. It is very difficult to find the time. Luckily, a lot of us are at home, and so you can do more than if you were in an office. But yeah, the struggle is real. I totally get that. You're obviously not alone. All right, so just a quick recap. First, if you're laid off, just take some time to recover and spend some real soul searching time to evaluate your situation and what really makes you happy. Stop looking for jobs. We're going to look for companies that add value to this world and, send something to your heart. You're going to track all of your activities, keep developing your network through LinkedIn and coffees and whatever else you can muster during this crazy time. Take classes, improve your skills, really learn your video interviewing, create a targeted resume, perfect and then re-perfect your LinkedIn profile and follow up in a timely manner. One thing I didn't say about LinkedIn that I will add is that not only should your profile be wonderful, but it cannot be a static piece. You need to be commenting, you need to be creating content, you need to be joining LinkedIn groups based on your profession. Comment and like and share other people's posts, tag people in your posts, thank them for things in the public eye. Really make your LinkedIn profile come alive. All right, so now we are going to do resume speed reviews, and I am going to continue to run the controls, but we're going to introduce Brooke Haynes and Susie Starosta, who are my lead recruiters here and basically run this company. I'm just a figurehead, and they're going to tell you what they would do with the two resumes that we have for you today. Ladies, are you able to speak?
Hello, this is Susie Starosta, and I'll be presenting the first resume. I'll let Brooke introduce herself also, but I'm the senior recruiter at Higher Profile, and I've been with Higher Profile for 15 years.
And I'm Brooke Haynes. I've been here just now 2 years.
And Brooke, tell us a little bit about your background, because you've got some interesting stories there.
Yeah, just got into recruiting 2 years ago, but was a hiring manager for many years and about 20 years in advertising agencies. So no corporate side, but no advertising really well.
Yes. All right. So here is our first example.
Okay, so a few people sent their resumes to us, and we selected two for you today. So Keonda is our first, and we have highlighted key areas of recommendations. So we'll just go through this real quick. So first of all, at the top in the contact section, we have highlighted the city there. And I just wanted to mention also, I wanted to compliment Keonda that her contact section includes all the detail we like to see. Always include your LinkedIn profile and a portfolio link if you have one. So my first recommendation is if you prefer a role in Lawrenceville and are only open to opportunities in that area, then this is fine as is. If commuting is not an issue, I would advise you to change this to Atlanta, Georgia. So next, she started with the title, areas of expertise, and wrote a nice brief summary. Key accomplishments. Keonda mentions measurable and quantifiable results, which helps you stand out. My recommendation is to use the percentage symbol instead of the word percent when mentioning percentages. Okay, and so in the the next highlighted item is recommendations. So it's customary for this to be at the end of the resume, below education if space allows. So I recommend moving that to the bottom. Okay, I see two edits. Remove the space in the areas of expertise section. Remove the space between business development initiatives and web, print, and broadcast advertising. And then over to the right, copywriting should be one word. So that's the next edit. Okay. Under professional experience, she mentions May 2018 to August 2019. So the dates are on the right side and the start and end months are included. This is great. So the company name should stand out more. You could change the font or bold. We recommend that titles be in all caps and uppercase. So the first thing I noticed on the date is the end date was August 2019. It could be that, Kionda went back to further her education. It could be that, she's been consulting or freelancing, but whatever the case, you should fill in the gap with what you have been doing since August of 2019. Then at the top of page 2, we see you are at the same company with a different title, but the same dates. Since you were only there 1 year and 3 months, we can remove the dates on page 2. And then also there is no need for a heading with your name and contact information on the second and third page. Only on page 1 should you have your name and contact information. This also helps save you space and, could be the difference in your resume being, 2 pages or 3 pages. And we recommend no longer than 2 pages. Of course, if you have 15, 20 years of experience, 2 pages is fine and normal. So for her role at Gwinnett Medical Center, at first glance, it appears she was there for 3 years, but this was the most recent title. She was actually employed there from 2007 to 2018. You should list that range at the top right, and you should include start and end months and years for each prior title. The first 3 letters of the month and the year is what is preferred instead of spelling out the whole month. Try to limit the number of bulleted successes for each role you had at the same company to 2 or 3. Also, there is no need to add, successes include where she puts that, above her bullets. That also will save space, removing that. Basically the introduction to what she did and then her bullets, minimum of, 3 to 5, but 3 is better, is perfect. So these changes will help, you stand out more and your resume will be 2 pages instead of 3. So that is it for Kionda.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Susie. All right, next, Brenda, thank you for sending this in. It's a great resume. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, you hear me. This is a great example of a heavier content resume. And it's because she has a lot of great experience. She's very seasoned. She's got a lot to talk about. I think it's great to have everything kind of housed in a resume, for her personal use. But when you are tailoring it towards the resume, you're going to want to eliminate that, cut that down to, like Nancy mentioned, tailor it to talk just to what you're going for. So starting at the top, she did well using her name. She does have a title up here. I would recommend using this as an area to really title yourself, almost use the transformative, purpose-driven global marketing executive, maybe put that up there instead. That really tells you who she is and what she's going for. She did not use a city up here, so that might have been on purpose if she's looking to move. But again, we recommend if you're in Atlanta, put Atlanta, Georgia. I highlighted the second part of the paragraph to try to cut that down. I'm not saying that sentence isn't relevant, but just really try to use a sentence or 2, very short and sweet. Same thing on the bullets. Try to only use 2 bullets. Pull that down into the job so that it's related to that job you worked for. Under the section under skills, we recommend calling that skills where the bullets are, strengths that drive brand. Really title that so it's easy and scannable as just a skills set area. And then also eliminate about half of those bullets. Like I said, she could use this, or you can use this as kind of like your catch-all. And then when you are tailoring that, you eliminate, you really just kind of take out what's not needed. When down in the experience level, also title that experience. Don't throw a title of a history of building brands. I know that's really powerful, but really make it scannable. Talk about just experience. Under her title, her job, McCormick's, I like that she talks about what that company is. I think that's great. Some people don't know what that is, but I would pull that down to the second up under it and use your date span up on your company line. That's important. You want to show people how long you were at a company. Like Susie was saying, when she was at at her last role, sometimes you're there 11 years, but that might not showcase if you've had 3 or 4 different roles throughout. So really show that full date span at the top. And then also eliminate that intro paragraph a little bit, shorten that up. Same thing here on the second page. You see how heavy the content is. So eliminating a lot of this content is really going to help air out each section and really kind of break it up so people see, okay, this is a bucket of information. She was this, secondary, and then they're on. It's really helpful on the eye for a hiring manager. We have to look at a lot of these. So it's highly recommended that you really give some space and air. All the other sections were really great. It's a short little intro, 2 to 3 bullets. And then on the last page, Nancy, same thing. Eliminate those bullets. Wells Enterprise, great. And then on the McDonald's, so this one fell into maybe like a 20-year ago job, but and I would say keep the name, because McDonald's, of course, maybe you've worked on great brands 20 years ago. You want to highlight those, but really eliminate what you did there, and then just put other experiences, past experiences. List those brands and titles just in a quick summary. I don't think this resume could probably get down to 2 pages, but it might be 2.5 after cutting it down, but it'll help, gap some of those experiences out a little bit. But overall, really nice design.
Great. Thank you, ladies, for doing that. And now, we'll go into a Q&A. We've got 10 minutes, and I know that there are some questions that have come up. I'm going to stop this. We'll just be human people. But we're happy to answer the questions. I think Amy's going to have a look at here.
Yeah, so I've been taking track of questions, and some are, I think, were answered but could probably be reiterated. And the topic of resumes, how important are cover letters? How long should a resume be? And objective, is putting an objective limiting?
I'll take that one if that's okay. Cover letters, they're not as important as maybe they used to be when you folded up your resume and put it in an envelope. However, it really is the email that may accompany, or carry your resume to a hiring manager. So that email becomes a cover letter, and it is important. It is important to be short and sweet and direct and name drop and do all of the things that you can't do in a resume. And then we talked about the resume maxing out at 2 pages ideally.
And then another one's about follow-ups. Do you need to send a written thank you if you've already sent an email? And we actually talked about this, Nancy, last week. How often do you follow up, and kind of what are good rules to follow as far as like what you should say when you do follow up?
I will answer that only because I talked about it, but the cadence of the follow-ups, I would say, would be probably every week to 10 days with something light. Now, if you've interviewed for a job and you got pretty far in the interview process, yes, every week, because you have skin in the game. If you're just trying to make connections, and it may have to be a little less frequent than every week to not be annoying, but you also might vary how you reach them. You might try a LinkedIn message, you might try an email. So there are some other ways, or you might actually just pick up the phone, and that's still an acceptable means of communication, even though I think sometimes the phone is our last thought. And then what was the first part about?
Do you need to send a written thank you?
Oh, people aren't really at the addresses that you may have on file for them right now. So I would say you can stick to digital communication right now, because people aren't getting their paper mail.
And these next are kind of situational. So one was, it's someone that was unemployed going into the pandemic and managed to find a job. They took a job to mainly just get back to work, and it wasn't their forever job. It was really a placeholder and source of income. How do you recommend they explain their situation to prospective employers if they don't want to appear like they're a job hopper?
Yeah, Either of you want to tackle that one?
I don't know. I mean, I think we can all chime in on that, but I think we're in a different climate right now. I think people might understand a little more that people are having to take jobs to make a living. I mean, they understand it. I mean, they don't have to be too transparent when they're interviewing of, hey, well, why are you leaving? You've only been here 6 months. You can just say, hey, I'm just keeping my options open. Really trying to find that forever job. You could say that, but I think people are really understanding that it's just a different world right now. I mean, it is.
I agree. Be honest and candid. And it's a gig economy also. There's a lot more consultants and contractors out there right now. So it's basically a new norm. So, you take what you can take within your profession, within your areas of expertise while you're still searching for your next permanent role.
The next one's about how you feel about using LinkedIn to find the hiring manager of a position that you're interested in, or someone that reports to that hiring manager, or that may be a key decision maker, and reaching out to them in addition to submitting your application.
I think it's smart, especially sometimes even the hiring manager may not even be the best one. It may be that friend or that ex-colleague of the hiring manager, because you're not trying to necessarily get them to pull your resume out of the pile, although it could happen. You're really wanting to know a little bit more about the company. What's it like to work there? Or in the case that you speak to someone who in that department or works with that hiring manager, say, hey, I applied for a job. What does Bob like to work with? What is he really seeking right now? You might get some really good intelligence, and that person may in fact then say, you need to look at this person. They were really inquisitive, asked all the right questions, seemed like a really sharp person. So you might have it work definitely to your advantage.
Another is about if you get offered a position and it requires more than 40 hours of work per week. Is there still room for salary negotiations, and how should they approach something like that?
Wow. Can you require it?
I mean, I can take that. I mean, I worked in advertising for 20 years. There was no such thing as a 40-hour work week. So I don't really know. I mean, it's kind of, unless you're an hourly, of course, and you could, you could talk to them about time and a half. But if you're a salaried employee, 40-hour work week's more like a 45 average these days, if not more. That's what I've seen.
So yes, and you can negotiate your salary based on commitment level of that job and the amount of personal, sacrifice that you'll have to make. Basically, everything is negotiable. Yeah, whatever value you are bringing.
Maybe ask for more time off, like more PTO or something.
Well, and with those crazy weeks, sometimes those companies say, yeah, we work you to death, but then you need, time off for a doctor's appointment. We're not going to be tallying your exact time off, because that would be very lopsided on their